and we'll move on to others. Thank you for holding. Philip, then Michael. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, Alex. Philip from Keene Region 9, formerly California. Wanted to call and discuss two things. One is with the Bilderberg meeting that's coming up. It seems to me that the best thing we could do is emulate what we know has worked in the past. With the success of stifling the Bilderberg meeting in Switzerland, I think it would be a fantastic opportunity for us to take the network of people that are celebrities, as well as Ron Paul, et cetera, and try and form a group to arrest and campaign against the people that we know are perpetrating, the atrocities and the agenda. I think, Alex, you're obviously a person who has the network of those people. So I'm personally more than happy to, as I'm sure all the listeners, to try and help execute that as much as possible. But the problem is we need people who have the network and can pull together those individuals. And someone like you could obviously be the, help be the ringleader for that.
Be a ringleader for specifically what? Organize people to infiltrate things?
To create basically having the network to pull together Ron Paul, let's say, the different celebrities and people who are highly visible with regards to different movements and pull them together so that way we can go to.
I thought you were talking at first about sneaking into Bohemian Grove and stuff like that.
No, I'm saying specifically the Bilderberg meeting that's coming up the end of this month. We know how the Swiss, basically, they had senators, or their equivalent, I should say, went to the Bilderberg meeting and tried to arrest individuals and said, hey, not in our country. We should be doing the same thing here, basically creating a list of what the crimes against humanity are.
I'll be honest with you. I want to totally confirm they're going to be there first. We think that's, well, I'd say I'm 95% sure. Tucker's 99, so he's probably right. But I don't want, well, now we're just giving it away here. I don't want to specifically rattle their cage too much, or they'll move it or cancel it or have 500 cops out there. And yes, if we could get a member of Congress to go in there and demand to be let in, that would be the moral authority. I'm not looking for a confrontation with the plainclothes Marines that are going to be there, and that's who's going to be there, and State Department protective detail. Don't worry, they'll be trying to set people up and stuff. It's real, is what I'm telling you. I'm going to be there to try to draw attention to them. The stuff of trying to arrest Karl Rove or things like that. I'd rather get the shadowy group exposed so that in the future we know who to arrest. And we're getting to that level. And I think it's great. I mean, once we confirm it is going to be there in Virginia, I was planning in the next week or two to start organizing not only thousands of people to be there to protest, but also a rally against them. And I also plan to stop at a few places along the way. I was thinking about Knoxville, Tennessee, one of our affiliates there, and give a speech before I got there. So, yes, I just didn't exactly want to tell Bilderberg what I was planning until they got a little bit closer to it. But I guess we are about a month out right now. But I'm not planning, to try to have them arrested or anything, because I think that would result in something the other way around. I would rather just absolutely ruin their event and draw attention to it and show how the corporate whore, well, I keep calling them names. They're the sympathizer, collaborator media. They're the banker sympathizer media. They're the foreign banker occupation enemies. And I do think when we take the country back, there needs to be criminal charges for all of them. This is aiding and abetting the overthrow of our free sovereign republic. I mean, I think Chris Matthews, all of them, should go to prison. I'll say it right now. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us here today, the 30th of April, 2012. I'm Alex Jones, your host, and for the rest of the hour, we're joined by constitutional lawyer and scholar Bruce Fein. He's also the chief policy advisor for Congressman Ron Paul's campaign. And we're always very thankful that he takes out time on his busy schedule. He's also been a constitutional advisor to Congress and members of Congress, and is a best-selling author. He's also been special assistant to the Attorney General for the Office of Legal Counsel and the Assistant Attorney General for Antitrust. General Counsel of the Federal Communications Commission, counsel to the Joint Congressional Committee over Covert Arms Sales to Iran, visiting fellow for the Constitutional Studies at the Heritage Foundation, adjunct scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, guest lecturer at the Brookings Institute, just to name a few of his laurels. Just an amazing constitutional mind, and we'll tell you about some of his books as well, including the latest one. But he also graduated with honors from Harvard Law School in 1972, where he went on to clerk for a prestigious federal court. But the reason I wanted to get him on was to talk about a host of issues. The Ron Paul campaign, so we can understand some of the strategies that are taking place right now, where he sees that going. But also I want to get into this legislation that may pass the House. It's passed the Senate for the IRS to strip a right of the passport, because a citizen can't give up their... government can't take your citizenship. You have to give it up yourself, from my constitutional understanding. So to say they're going to strip it extrajudicially, can you even take a passport of a felon? No. I mean, this is really dangerous. And this TSA on the streets, checkpoints, searching bags in Dallas and Houston, and now I've been told they're coming to Austin. I mean, that's illegal. I'm going to resist feds out of their jurisdiction randomly, in some cases with the Army, just setting up checkpoints and searching people. I'm not doing it. This is lawlessness, so I want to get his take on that, and Obama and the wars and telling Congress he can take a hike. In fact, Mr. Fein, we haven't had you on in the last month or so since that incredible video that I know you and Congressman Ron Paul spoke about, because I've seen your comments, but I'd like to hear them here. Let's start there before we get into Ron Paul, and then there's some points you want to go over. What do you make of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, the Secretary of Defense, Panetta, going before the Senate Armed Service Committee and saying, we don't come to you to launch wars now, we get it from the UN. So it's bad enough if the president, like Caesar, said, I'm in control of the military, the Senate can take a hike. You know, that's Rubicon behavior. But imagine if Caesar said, I work for the Gauls, or I work for the Visigoths now, or I work for the Persians. That would be high treason, would it not be? I mean, this is beyond Caesar-type activity. As bad as Hitler was, absolutely terrible. Hitler was the German dictator. But imagine if he would have been saying, I have the authority from Stalin. That would have even been another level. Or am I incorrect in common law, common sense, constitutional law? What do you call it when the president sends letters last year and says, I'll launch wars when I feel like it. How dare you criticize me? I have UN authority. And now the military belligerently tells Congress that they can basically go jump in the lake. What are you advising Congress on right now?
Well, that's, in fact, one of the things that I've done in the interim. I've drafted a House concurrent resolution. It's 107 for your audience, introduced by Walter Jones, that at least has Congress stating quite unequivocally it is an impeachable offense, a high crime and misdemeanor under Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution for the president unilaterally to initiate the military in offensive warfare. So we have a clear declaration. You have now basically violated your oath of office and need to be removed. If he ever acted, he's already acted on that way in Libya, and most recently now he's what we would call unrestricted predator drone warfare in Yemen against even unnamed targets that we're reassured are high-level officials like the 16-year-old son of Alaki, without any congressional authority whatsoever. And notice also, Alex, when we were reading in the last week about the proposed 10-year extension of the United States military and economic aid to Afghanistan running from 2014 to 2024. There we have the headlines. The parties that have to ratify the agreement that still has details, it's listed as President Hamid Karzai of Afghanistan, the Afghanistan Parliament, and President Obama. Congress doesn't even make a cameo appearance, It's like they have been reduced to an ink blot in the constitutional system when they're supposed to be the check on abuses and empire mentality that causes the budget to skyrocket and engage in these fool's errands that make us less safe and create enemies. And I mean, it's really almost, it makes me speechless to know how clear the Founding Fathers were on entrusting these national security responsibilities to Congress because they distrusted the executive's inclination, to go to war, to concoct conflict, because the executive gets all the power, the secrecy, the money, the spending, the jingoism, and whatever. To see that intent turned on its head. And then what's even more stunning than your chronicling of what the military and the chiefs of staff told Congress is, instead of someone standing up and said, sir, because you can impeach members of the military and who also have official duties and as well as the president. You have now announced that you are not loyal to the Constitution. We're going to impeach and remove you from office. You'd expect at least some murmur of that kind of nothing. I mean, isn't it stunning, Alex, that no one in Congress entrusted with the responsibility to remove these people lifted a finger or said anything at all adverse in light of the usurpation?
Constitutional law expert, advisor to Congress, advisor to Ron Paul, as chief policy advisor, Bruce Fein, constitutional lawyer, joins us. Well, that was my point. I should have said that in the introduction. I was aware that you authored the piece of legislation for Walter Jones. We had him on, and in fact, that's why I wanted to get you on to discuss that, because there's no one better at the center of this actually resisting it. I know Ron Paul has criticized it, and he said there are many impeachable offenses, but this is one of them. Absolutely. In fact, that was my next question to you, but you just asked me. What has happened to Congress, Mr. Fein, that the Joint Chiefs were belligerent? I would say Panetta's attitude was arrogant and belligerent. We're watching treason. We're watching the overthrow of our constitutional system in front of us, basically the equivalent of a dog hiking its leg on us, marking its territory. And nothing ever came of it except for your resolution and a few House members signing on to it, when this should be one of the biggest issues of our time. And it's part of a long train of these lawyers in D.C. who are clearly trying to set the precedent that the war powers no longer resides in Congress.
No, exactly. And it is worse than just the presidential usurpation. You're right. At least then, we still have the president who at least nominally is an oath to have his allegiance only to the United States. But then this concoction that the United Nations and the Security Council of the United Nations can authorize and tell the president what he can do. I mean, the Supreme Court is quite clear. In a case called Reed versus Covert in 1954, the Supreme Court held a treaty cannot trump the constitutional rights and checks and balances in the American system, meaning that a treaty cannot override the exclusive power of Congress to decide to go to war. And I don't care whether there's a UN treaty, so what? The Constitution trumps the treaty. The treaty must be subordinate to the Constitution. Otherwise, could you imagine signing a treaty that says all the signatories agree that no one shall have freedom to criticize any government that's ruling in office? There goes our First Amendment rights. But the UN has agreed to it. You can't do that. I mean, the treaties then can be used to destroy the entire constitutional framework.
Well, look at the UNIDIR treaty that countries have signed on to. It says, I've read the quote, it says civilian ownership of firearms will be abolished to defend the legitimate power monopoly of the state. They're saying the state needs a power monopoly and that's legitimate, when that's the opposite of what our system's set up on.
Yeah, exactly. And they say that those treaties are subordinate to the Constitution. If there's a conflict, the treaty has to yield, not the other way around. And now when we're on the war issues and others, you just have to get a treaty and ratify it, and then the Constitution out the window, and then the loyalty of the president is to some international body that we have no control over. It has no loyalty to us. It doesn't pay us any taxes, doesn't obey our laws, which is insane.
Well, we're going to break in a moment. I want to come back and get into other issues, sir. But what do you recommend we do? Get behind the legislation you wrote? This is really, Alex, the instruments are there.